little surprised at some of this. These are all paintings. I don't know all these guys. I know that they're famous. I know that they got paintings that are worth in the millions. And I know that they painted these back in the 1300s and the 1400s. Any of you around at that time? I didn't think so. And so one of the examples I want to share with you is called the Madonna with St. Giovannino. Okay, there's probably going to be a lot of Italian names in here, and I'm going to screw them totally up. So located in Florence, and it features a glowing dish-shaped object over Mary's shoulder while a shepherd and his dog look up. Okay? So look at that. Let's go to the first picture. Now, it's harder to see it there, but look over her shoulder, and you see something. All right? It's not where he just dropped a little bit of paint. And then if you look over past that pole and to the top left-hand side, there's something there too. Let's go to the next picture. And this is it blown up. You see the object down on the right-hand side, and that's the object that's over her shoulder. Okay? And then you see the object over on the left-hand side, and that is the one that is up in the corner. Now, call it what you will. I don't know what it is. But if you don't know what it is, it's unidentified, right? So, and I wasn't around to look at it. And like I said before, I have seen them. Some of you have seen them. And it's really, kind of verifies what I've always thought, is that these things have been around almost since the dawn of time. And so, and I talked about the fact that some people say, well, when were they created, these people, or who runs or who's in these things? I don't know who all is in them. I mean, I've read enough and studied enough to tell you certain names of groups of people and describe them, but I wouldn't do it right now, right here, at this moment, without more research and more solid proof. Does that make sense? But some of the whistleblowers in Washington who've been coming out and talking about it, high-ranking officials, say that many of them look like us, and we could be sitting across from them in a restaurant and not even know. See, I'm still trying to figure out if Larry is an alien or not. Just kidding. I know Dave is from Mars, okay? So, but as far as being able to know who they are and all, I don't have that ability. And so this painting is from the 1400s. All right, it's from the 1400s. And you look at it, and you can tell it has a UFO in the sky. Now, what's a guy in the 1400s doing painting a UFO in the sky? Why would an artist do that? He's trying to, maybe subtly let people know something? Okay? And once you see it, as you see there, you can't unsee it. It makes sense? All right, go to the next picture. And then, if you look at that, no, you go back one. There. Yeah, that's the one. Anybody want to take a guess what that might be if it's not a UFO? I mean, it looks like one of those little bristles that you get on your britches whenever you're walking through a field, But that's a really big one. And, but isn't that something? Painted in the 1400s. Again, I ask you the question, why would you think that an artist would paint something like that? Because he wants people to see what he has seen, and it's a subtle way of letting people know that there's something there. Okay, now you can go to the next one. And then when you go to the next one, All right? It just kind of, if you look at the insert picture on the bottom right-hand side, see what he has? It's painted down there. It's a shepherd with his dog looking at it. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Now, if you just saw the picture, you wouldn't even be focusing on all that. You'd just be focusing on, the two little kids there, Jesus and Mary. Oh, how sweet. But when you really look at it and you think, man, that was done in the 1400s. That wasn't done yesterday. So, history has all sorts of things like that. Cave drawings and all. Let's go to the next page. Let's talk about whether there's real UFO crashes or not. How many of you believe that there have been crashes by UFOs that we have got a hold of them? And that the government has crash retrieval programs and reverse engineering and all. It's really funny that in 1947 in Roswell, when that UFO crashed, that they came out that night and just said, in the newspapers, and that, UFO crashes at Roswell. And no sooner did they get that out than the next day they recanted it, after the military stepped in. And so you think about when something crashes, if something like that crashes, their technology is a lot better than ours. And so how did we go from the phone system we had back then to fiber optics in just a matter of a short period of time? You see what I'm saying? All that sort of thing. So you have to also do a little deducing here. Well, the term UFO has been around for a long time. In fact, one of the first reported and documented UFO incidents actually occurred on April 17th of 1897 in the small town of Aurora, Texas. And I've read this story in depth and studied it. According to the local stories, everybody came out to see the crash. It actually hit a windmill. It was pumping water. According to the local stories, it crashed into a windmill, exploding, ejecting debris, and a dead alien body. And the story has many similarities to the most famous UFO crash story of all, and that is the Roswell, New Mexico crash in 1947. And if you notice, I wanted you to fill in that so you don't miss it, Roswell. Because that's when all this really started to pique people's interest, in 1947. But again, going back, the difference between the two stories was that the crash of 1897 went public and there was no cover-up story. Nobody tried to cover it up in 1897. All right? In fact, they buried the body. Had a preacher come and do some rites. They did that in Louisiana also back in the 40s when one crashed. They went and got a preacher, and then when they buried the body, they had him do a prayer over the alien body. And then it's funny that not long after that, the U.S. government exhumed the body. It's not there now. So that 1897 went public, and there was no cover-up, and nobody denied it. Everybody in town said, yeah, this happened. Yeah, I saw it. In fact, it said the actual alien body from the UFO wreckage was buried at the local cemetery in an unmarked grave. And this is just one of many thousands of stories from around the world of UFO sightings and close encounters of the third kind. Of close encounters. UFOs have been showing up in human history for years. Now, you say, well, Pastor David, this is a Bible study. What does this have to do with us and the Bible? Well, it has a lot to do. It really does. You might have asked, many years ago, what does a computer have to do with us in church? I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know coming around the pike. You know, how many of you would ever thought when you were a kid that that telephone that hung on the wall and had that cord, and you could pull that cord so far to try to sneak a call, now you can just pull your phone out of your pocket? Did you think that you'd be able to do that? No. On Star Trek was doing it, but we weren't. At least general public wasn't. So look at that, the article under there, discovery of evidence surrounding the 1897 UFO crash baffles scientists. So they even put it in the paper. There's no cover up. Now let's go over to the right-hand side of your paper. Spaceships at the crucifixion? I don't know. Was anybody there to witness it? I don't know. I don't know. Here we have, if you look down at that next picture, you know, this is in Serbia. They don't know who the artist is. There's two details that are highlighted. This was painted 13 centuries after the event. Okay? So it can't be taken of evidence. You can't use it as evidence of what happened on that day, you know, without being completely irrational. If you said that that actually happened on that day, you're just like, okay, you're bananas, because you weren't there to witness it all those many years later. But, and that would be a foolish line of reasoning. But look at the next thing that I have there. What remains is to look at the intentions of the artist. Why, this is what I asked you before, why would an artist put a UFO over the shoulder of Mary? You see what I'm saying? And why would an artist portray spaceships in his painting in 1350? Anybody around in 1350? This guy it's 1350. We live in 2026. And this is what he paints. And maybe the artist, you know, maybe he saw UFOs being piloted this way. And so he incorporated it into his art. I don't, you tell me. If you were to even use the term UFO back then, how would you even describe something that you had never seen before? And you didn't have the terminology. But you could paint it or draw a picture, you know, on a cave wall or in a painting or whatever. And so there were many artists that did that. All right, let's go to the next one. This is really interesting. This is called the Annunciation. It's in the National Gallery of London. Now, what stands out to you right now as you look at it? There's a UFO with a yellow light beaming down, right? And where's it beaming down to? To the girl that's inside the building, right? Okay. And it is supposed to be representative of when Gabriel visited Mary to tell her that she was going to have the Messiah. I don't know. That's a peacock. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the rest of it. I mean, you see some strange things. But honestly, when you look at that, it just looks like an ordinary religious painting with a few figures in it, right? But when you look carefully, you see a strange object in the sky near Christ. I don't know what it has. All I know is these are literal pieces of art that were done in the 1300s. Now, why would an artist paint something like that? Now, I don't understand it all either. But we read our Bibles. We all know that Gabriel, gave the good news to Mary, and Mary had this song that she sang, and Mary had a little lamb and all that, right? And so, do you think that we really have a grasp on everything and anything that goes on in the universe? We don't have a clue. We don't have a clue. The only clue that we have that really counts is that Jesus died for us and rose again. Nothing else matters. But I believe that we can glean some things from this so that if something does happen in our world, in our country, where we see objects and they come down and say, I'm the Messiah or whatever, we know who the real Messiah is. Okay? And it's not going to be a little green man stepping out of a spaceship. And it's not going to be some gray with a big head and big black eyes. When Jesus comes and the clouds of glory and the trumpet sounds, people are going to fall on their knees, some rejoicing and some weeping and wailing. We know that. So what I want you to be aware of, because I believe that we're at this, what many people call the age of disclosure, when some of this stuff is actually going to come to light. Now, Trump promised to do this, and they released now 3 batches of information and photographs and movies of these sort of things. And they're going to release more. We, as kids, it would blow your mind, wouldn't it? I don't know. Take a look at the next one. This piece of art was in the mid-13th century. It depicts Jesus Christ being crucified, and it's one of the most famous pieces of what they call Georgian religious art. Used to be a country called Georgia. I know there's a state, but the painting, the painting, what they say, is really beautiful. But there's some interesting details that a lot of people don't notice at first glance. This is where, you and I, when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to things of spiritual nature, we need to see the details. Have you ever heard the term, the devil's in the details? There's a reason for that. All right? And what appears, it appears to be 2 flying objects hovering in the sky. This is a 13th century painting. What in the heck is that? I mean, seriously, take a look on either side of him. You see what I'm saying? Now, listen, guys. You can't deny that these things were painted. They're painted. They're in museums. They're dated to certain dates by certain artists and verified. I mean, I could take a fuzzy Polaroid of something and you'd say, "Oh man, that was just glare off a car's headlight." But these are artists, renowned artists, who are slipping things into their paintings. All right? Now, tell me what you think of that picture. I mean, how many had ever seen this before, that picture? A couple of you. Now, so what's your thought when you know that somebody who's a verified artist and held in high esteem paints a painting like this, what would be your thought when you look at it and see that? Yeah, there's stuff like. Now, there's another one. Turn to page 4. In the background of this painting, it's called the Baptism of Christ. Look up in the sky. This painting was made in 1640. 1640. And it depicts Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist. And of course, there's all sorts of theories. And I'm not telling you what to believe or not to believe. I'm just telling you history bears out through certain things, whether it's cave dwelling drawings or whether it's artist renditions, through various painters or whatever, that UFOs have been around for a long time. What is the agenda? I don't know. You know, there are a lot of theories about this unidentified flying object. Some people say that it is a disc-shaped craft with shining lights. Others argue that it's more likely to be just an unusually shaped cloud. So I guess that unusually shaped cloud just has, and that's rain coming down just in that one spot. Right? I don't know. Just, yes, maybe just depicting a spiritual truth of the Holy Spirit descending down, a symbolic. Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying a UFO was at Jesus' baptism. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not. But what I want you to do is to think. Because a bunch of stuff is going to come out, and you got to think, and you've got to read your Bibles, and you got to take your stand for Jesus Christ. At the bottom, it's not just a UFO conspiracy theorists who are convinced these paintings contain evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Art experts also are convinced the paintings were created with some kind of an awareness of extraterrestrial life. What do you think? So now, artists of our day, when they see these paintings, they're convinced that the painters of old were trying to relay to future generations that these things are around and that they're real. Okay, are there any accounts of UFOs in the Bible? I'm not going to say yes or no on that. I will tell you that when you read the book of Revelation, every time I read that book, I change my mind about something. You know what I'm talking about? And think about the technology that we have today that they didn't have 100 years ago when they were teaching it. You understand what I'm saying? So, the Bible does not explicitly mention UFOs or extraterrestrial life. Now, extraterrestrial life we know exists in the form of demons and fallen angels and, you know, God's messenger angel and all that. But as its focus is on humanity's spiritual redemption, that's what the Bible is all about. Us being redeemed back to God. Jesus paying the sacrifice for us. However, there are theorists and theologians who frequently interpret various visionary passages, such as Ezekiel's glowing chariot. How many of us have read about the glowing chariot for Ezekiel? And Elijah's fiery ascension in the chariot of fire. And they look at those as encounters with advanced otherworldly craft. And these are controversial interpretations. And they say these things prove. Well, I'm not sure about that. Why would angels need a vehicle? That's exactly right. Yeah. They don't. But would the Nephilim need a vehicle? Angels, they don't need it. So then you come down, if there's really something that's controlling some of these, are they good or are they bad? J.D. Vance, Vice President, is convinced that these are all demonic. I'm not sure that that's true. I just hate to write everything off as every time you turn around, there's a demon around every little rock. So, let's take a look at Ezekiel's vision. The most famous alleged biblical UFO sighting involves the prophet Ezekiel. Now, this is not my words, so to speak. What I'm doing is interpreting somebody else's reactions, okay? So that you can get two sides of the story, and then you can look it up and make up your own mind. So, this sighting involves the prophet Ezekiel witnessing a massive cloud with flashing lights, lightning, four-winged creatures, and wheels within the wheel that moved in any direction without turning. Now, that would be something, wouldn't it? Most of us probably, we saw something like that, probably pee our pants. I'm just telling you. So, while most theologians view this as symbolic vision of God's majesty, his heavenly authority, there are alien theorists who interpret these, what we call mechanisms, as technologically advanced spacecraft. Now, what I want to do is just real quickly read through Ezekiel 1, verses 1 through 12, actually, 21. And just follow along with me here. And listen to what Ezekiel has to say. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Shebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, which was in the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, and in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Shebar. And the hand of the Lord was upon him there. Then I looked, at verse 4, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north. A great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself. And brightness was all around it, and radiating out of its midst like the color of amber. Okay? I have to make sure we're on. Verse 5. Also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces. I've known 2-faced people, but I've never met a 4-faced person. Each had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's feet. You know, hooves. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hands of a man were under their wings on their four sides. So they were standing there with their hands to their sides. And their legs were stiff. Okay? And each of the four had faces and wings. Their wings touched one another. The creatures did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. So if you have four of them, so if this one he's leading the way right now and going this way, and all of a sudden when they want to go this way, this one is leading the way, he's going straight. You understand what I'm saying? Or if this one, if they're going to turn left, they're not making a turn, all right? This guy over here, he's going that direction. And if he won't go backwards, it's really not backwards. Because the guy, there's another angel back here, and he's going forward. Huh? Facing that direction. Yeah. So they could go whatever direction they want. But each one went straight forward. So it didn't turn. They just went forward. As for the likeness of their faces, each one had the face of a man. Each of the four had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the four had the face of an ox on the left side. And each of the four had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces. Their wings stretched upward. 2 wings of each one touched another. In other words, when their wings stretched out, they touched the wing of this one over here, and this wing that they lifted up touched the wing of this one over here. But remember, they got their hands to their side, and they still have 2 more wings. They have 4 wings total, right? Yeah, well, artists can't wrap their brain around it either. That I've never seen an artist rendition that I thought really, truly represented it. A lot of people try. But you know what? We can't comprehend the mind of God. We just can't do it. And so they went wherever the Spirit wanted to go. Hey, isn't that what we should be doing? Going wherever the Spirit goes? And they did not turn when they went. Verse 13, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning, and the living creatures ran back and forth in appearance like a flash of lightning. So they were moving lightning fast, forward, whichever one was. In other words, you ain't getting away from them. Don't try to run. Verse 15, now as I looked at the living creatures, behold, a wheel was on the earth beside each living creature with its 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their workings was like the color of beryl. Now I want to stop for a minute, and I didn't realize this until I heard another minister talk about it. And he's done a lot of research on this. It says, according to their workings or their mechanisms. Earth is a shadow of what heaven is, right? This is just a shadow of what heaven is really like. Whether it be trees, flowers, whatever it may be. What are workings? Workings are machinery. Mechanical stuff. You mean you could have mechanical stuff in heaven? Apparently. And so The appearance of the wheels and their workings was like the collar of a barrel, and all four had the same likeness. The appearance of their workings was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So it was some sort of mechanical type of a device that was still an angel, that still had biologics to it, in other words, like us being cyborg or something. I don't know. So when they moved, they went toward any one of four directions. They did not turn aside when they went. As for their rims, I bet they had some good rims, you know. They were so high, they were awesome. And their rims were full of eyes all around the four of them. When the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went. Because there the Spirit went. And the wheels were lifted together with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Isn't that interesting? I cannot tell you how many times I have looked at that portion of Scripture and just tried every way in the world to try to explain it. Fit all that together and try to picture something. And so artists keep doing it, and so I found a couple of pictures that I thought was closer than, some of the other. But look at the very first one, an artist's rendition. You can see the angel's wings. You can see eyes all over. All right, go to the next one. And this person thinks this is how some biblical angels look. Well, the Bible says that there's four living creatures around the throne of God, and they constantly fly back and forth. And they're saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and who is to come. And that's all they do, is give him praise. And I would say all day long, but there is no day and no night because there's no time. So you think about that. You might say, man, I get tired of doing that after a while. Well, no, you wouldn't, because time isn't passing. You're living outside of time. So these are some things that I picked up there, and because I just want your minds to start to, how can I say it? Be a little more critical thinking skills. Not just take notes. I want you to think for yourself so that when you get into positions with other people or other ministers, you're not fooled. Don't you think that's the way we should be? Have any of you ever been to a church before where after a while you realized that this guy is not preaching the truth at all? Now, people who don't read their Bibles, who don't study their Bibles, they wouldn't know it, would they? All right, let's go to the second one, number 6. I see Larry's thinking real hard here. I still owe you that breakfast, right? Oh, we did get the breakfast. See, I'm getting old, Larry. Welcome to the club, huh? Elijah's fiery chariot. During the prophet Elijah's departure from earth, the text states that a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated him from Elisha, and he was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Okay? Now, if you'll get ready for this, what am I trying to say? Alex, are you up there? All right, I'm going to have to sit down for a minute. Okay? So you might want to adjust your camera because I know people are watching. In 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Now, I want you, before I even read this, I want you to picture what was just said. How that he was taken up in a chariot of fire and horses of fire. And that as it came down to get him, it separated him from Elisha. I don't know, if I was Elisha, I'd probably be trying to climb on too. You know? And he was taken in a whirlwind. To me, it's like Dorothy in Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore. Elisha. And he was his. And Elisha was like the protege. He was the one he was training. He was basically training him to take his job at some point. Just like, you know, I'm training people right now. Huh? No, Elijah, J-A-H, and Elisha, S-H-A. This close. Yeah. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that before they actually were prophets, they had to go through a school of prophecy. They had to be trained. I think that's we're going to get into that stuff. 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 1. And it came to pass when the Lord was about to take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, almost like a wormhole, huh? That Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So he was not going to leave his protege. Yes. His mentor. He was not going to do it. He was committed to Elijah. And he wanted to learn from Elijah, and he wanted everything that Elijah had and more. Lord, use me. And so they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" So these guys knew what was coming. They had the inside scoop. Somehow. Well, I guess because they're prophets, right? And he said, "Yes, I know." Then he says, "Keep silent." And I think what he really was saying is, because they were all trying to talk him out of going with Elijah, I think basically he was telling all these prophets that tried to stop him, "Shut up. I know what I'm doing." And it says, "Yeah, I know. Keep silent." Verse 4, then Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." Now, he was committed. So they came to Jericho. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" See, now this group knew also what was going to happen. So he answered, "Yeah, I know. Keep silent. Shut up. Quit trying to talk me out of being with him. I want to stay with him every step of the way." Verse 6, then Elijah said to him, stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to the Jordan. But he said, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. So here's 50 guys who are sons of the prophets. Basically, they're learning to be prophets also. And he says, Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them crossed over on dry ground. Crossed over the Jordan River on dry ground. Reminds you of what? Moses? Yeah. And so it was, when they had crossed over, that Elijah said to Elisha, ask, what may I do for you before I am taken away from you? So here's Elijah. He's going to honor a final wish from Elisha, because he's stuck with him this whole time. He says, let me see. Elisha said, please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me. In other words, whatever God has given you, let me have that and another portion of it. I don't want one drink, I want two. I want a double portion of the Spirit. So he said, you have asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if not, it shall not be so. Then it happened, as they continued on and talked, that suddenly a chariot of fire appeared with horses of fire, and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen. So he saw him no more. All right, there you go. There's the story. Also said that he lets his mantle fall on Elisha. I've never seen anything like that. Have any of you? All right, go to the picture, if you would. And this is an artist's rendition of what it might have looked like. Chariot, horses, all on fire, and Elijah climbs on board. I don't know about you, but I'm not climbing into anything that's burning. Yeah, God told me to. Now, is that exactly how it happened? Yes. In their language, in their way. But do you and I really know what those things were? We don't. We don't, because they only had a limited vocabulary. I like to take the Bible literally, unless it's absolutely like, that's got to be symbolic. Here's another one. The Star of Bethlehem. The celestial body that guided the Magi to Jesus is sometimes debated as a potential UFO by ancient astronaut theorists due to its unusual, seemingly intelligent movement, though traditional scholars classify it as a miraculous sign, astrological event, or a divine light. Okay? So there are some people who believe that the Star of Bethlehem wasn't what we would really call a star. Let's look at Matthew 2, verses 1 through 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. I don't know about you, but there had to be something kind of really bright that really stood out. And I don't know if other people saw it and joined the bandwagon or what. But there are some that think that that could have been that. Go to that first slide. Okay? Nope. Listen, this is not what I believe. I'm telling you what others believe and how they can explain UFOs. So, you're looking up in space to something that's millions of miles away. And you're following it, which means it must be moving. Okay, I'm just asking. I'm asking for a friend. Linda, we're not taking it too far. What I'm doing is telling people what others think may happen. And see the attitude you have right now. If something, well, you didn't believe for the longest time in UFOs. And we were married for how many years? And then what happened? You're the one who pointed it out. Well, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying I believe that. What I'm saying is that there are people who try to find, some logical explanation for some things that don't quite make sense. I do. Yeah, I do. What I'm trying to do though is let you guys know what ufologists, secular ones or whatever, think. What it has to do with the Bible? What that has to do with the Bible is that keep your mind open to where you don't fall for stuff like this. But I will tell you something else. Every one of us in this room are hard-headed. We're older. We've heard stuff all of our lives and believed it and never questioned it. And I want you to learn to think for yourselves and to research it. Before you all start saying, no, that couldn't have happened. Well, I don't believe that happened either. But before you say it, won't you do some research? I don't want you just to take my word for it. Because what good would that be for you? Because then somebody else could come along and fool you also. Change your mind, yeah. If you haven't learned anything from the way I teach and preach, as far as what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get people to think for themselves. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you to study the Word. Don't be content just to read a few words, 2 or 3 scriptures, and then you can't even remember what you read 5 minutes later. I want you to dig. That's the only way you grow. Right? There's no amens on that one. All right, go to the next one. I'm really going to get it from her now. And this one, okay, again, these are paintings from artists. And what they're trying to do, I don't know, as far as, I'm not trying to convince you that that's what's going on, or that happened. I am not. I really am not. But what I am trying to do is get you to think. But before you jump down my throat, at least let me have the chance to give an explanation. I'm talking to everybody else, not you. Okay? I have no idea. Probably just clouds or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. I like I said, I don't know the mind of. See, I don't know the mind of the people who did this, or what their intentions were. Okay. So go down to the bottom. I knew that those were going to make some of you want to jump right out of your skin. Now, if I stood up here and stomped my foot and said, that's exactly what happened, you could do that. Did anybody in here hear me say that I thought that that's what happened? Because, disclosure is coming, and UFOs are real. And if you're not careful, you're going to get fooled. Go ahead, Larry.
I think it's really good if we look at this, because this isn't going away. It's getting more and more and more and more in the news, and I don't know what to think about all of this.
Yeah.
I tend to believe in UFOs because I've never seen one, but it's so common. I don't know what they mean, and I think that's what David's getting at, is that we really got to look at this stuff and try to figure out, whenever on CNN they show one and they admit that it's there, we need to have an idea how this is going to affect us. So I think it's good.
I thank you for that, Larry. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, look at the bottom of that page. All right, has the government admitted that UFOs exist? Yes, they have. Trump put this out. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. So what do you think about the president saying that? Okay. How many batches of information and photos and documents have been released? 3 batches. And the papers are they're not in the millions, they're in the hundreds of thousands that people are sifting through. And the number of videos and pictures. Okay, go to number 9. If we talk about Trump, I guess we have to talk about Obama. So after Obama was on TV, and I saw the clip of it, and the reporter asked him if aliens were real. And he says, they're real. And when he did that, that's when Trump began to release the government files on UFOs. And Trump said he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. Now, let me ask you a question. if UFOs didn't really exist, then how could it be classified? We're classifying that UFOs don't exist. You see what I'm saying? Don't make sense, does it? So President Donald Trump accused Barack Obama of disclosing classified information in comments that the former president made recently about aliens, then acknowledged hours later the tremendous interest in the topic and said he was ordering the government to release more information. So he kind of flipped there a little bit, didn't he? He gave, and this is what Trump said, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. Trump told reporters on February 19th aboard Air Force One, adding that Obama's comments were a big mistake. And podcast host Brian Tyler Cohen asked Obama if aliens are real in an interview published on February 14th, and the former president replied, "They are real, but I have not seen them." And that's out of USA Today. So here's where we come. What does it mean for Christians? And this is what I've wrapped it up with. The proven existence of life elsewhere in the universe would pose no threat to our Christian faith, as many people fear that it would. Scholars and theologians believe that no core doctrine would be undermined, that you and I are not going to fall for some trickery. All right? That Christians are still going to stay Christians. The discovery of life beyond this planet would not threaten the truth of Christianity. It could even be an opportunity for the church to glory in the fact that the choir which praises the Creator is actually much larger than any of us really imagined. Just saying. Psalm 19, 1 through 2. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. What declares his glory? The heavens. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in the heavens, rejoice. Take it how you want it there. So, again, my whole thing, I really felt led to do all this simply because I've told you guys before that there were a group of pastors that were pulled aside by people in the government and told that this disclosure is going to happen, and to be prepared to be able to explain things and let people know you don't give up your faith, that sort of thing. But that, because, what would happen if a gigantic spaceship landed on the White House lawn and some aliens walked out of it? Do you think it would be front page news? Every camera in the world on it? And how do you think people would react? No, the military wants their research. So. Yeah. painting from 1500? Well, I'm sure. And what it is that you thought I was going too far because I actually believed it. Yeah. God can do anything. Oh, yeah. But you need background information in order to know how to refute it. And people need to know, you know, background information in the Bible in order to defend the Bible and their faith. And this is no different. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, so the ones that were painted in the 1500s and 1300s, do you think those were? Mm-hmm. That's good. Shows a little discernment then. Did I say that? Yeah. Just want to clear that up. Yeah. Well, they already tried to seed the planet with the Nephilim, when angels and people, and that's why we had Noah's flood. Yeah. So, go ahead. They're still experimenting on people. Yeah. Well, our government is the biggest drug dealer in the world is the CIA. I hope you took it off, like 10 minutes ago.